joining us today. We have four amazing speakers here in the Zoom, and I also welcome participants joining via Zoom and also YouTube Tapal UK. Okay, we will have discussion today until 5:30 p.m. Jakarta time. Maybe I would like to greet all of you who join in European time. Good morning, a very good morning. Welcome. First of all, I would like to introduce our speakers for today. We have Ian Moore, campaigner at Tapal UK. And I would like to invite all speakers to turn on their camera so participants can see you all. First speaker is Ian Moore from Tapal UK. And we also have Unggul Sagena, researcher at SafeNet. Third speaker of today is Esther Haluk, female activist from West Papua. She's not here yet, but she'll join us soon. And last speaker is Pak Made Supriyatma, visiting research fellow at Isaias Yusuf Ishak Institute. Good afternoon and good morning, speakers.
Hi. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone.
Okay, so as you've been aware, participants, we will have reports launching, and later we will have discussions. So we're going to discuss what's really been happening so far in West Papua. As we've already known for the past year, in 2022, there have been big events happening in West Papua. And if you later listen to the speakers from SafeNet and also Tapal, in their reports, they will also share their findings on freedom of expression, assembly and association, and also digital rights. Some highlights that I can mention is about relative increase and freedom of expression restrictions, and also arbitrary arrest, arbitrary dispersal. These are big incidents happening during 2022. That's going to be conveyed by our speakers from Tapal and also SafeNet. We also talk about internet access. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to invite the first speaker, Ian Moore. Ian is Tapal UK-based campaigner. He is a lead writer of Tapal's Freedom of Expression and Freedom of Assembly report. Ian has some experience working in the region and have been working with a think tank group on human rights issues. So Ian, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. That is excellent. Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much for the floor, Vici, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share with our presentation with all the distinguished audience here today. Over the course of this presentation, which will draw on our latest report at Tapal, we hope to look at the circumstances surrounding freedom of expression and assembly in West Papua across 2022, both within the region itself and across Indonesia as a whole. Given this is our fourth report in the series that we have been doing on freedom of expression and freedom of assembly, we will be also looking at trends we have seen over those years. And I think Vici gave a little bit of a taster of with some of the trends that we were seeing about the going on in the increasing seriousness of the situation going on in the region. So firstly, we'll take a look at some of the major events affecting these issues in 2022. The big one being the passing of the Special Autonomy Law, which was accompanied in June and November with the creation of new provinces in West Papua. There were many mass protests in the time leading up to it, when it was passing, and after it passed. And this has been a major source of where protests have been shut down and free expression has been shut down, as the police or other actors are stopping these protests from taking place. Secondly, if we look at the passing of the new criminal code in December, there has been a lot of worrying passages in there which may lead to greater suppression of freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. A lot of laws targeting specific insults against the dignity of certain government institutions, such as the president, or in terms of Pancasila, are often unclearly defined, and so they are often with the theories that they will be used to silence protest and human rights defenders carrying out legitimate work on these issues. In the international arena in 2022, there was the Universal Periodic Review, where Indonesia was reviewed by the member states of the UN in terms of how well they're doing on various human rights, and there was the G20. Both of these were accompanied by a lot of action on the part of people, and it raised the debate on issues of freedom of expression and assembly in West Papua, with Indonesia on the international stage in these arenas. But the protests themselves were often, and any sort of expression outside of the government's wish to portray in the situation in West Papua, was met with dispersals and arbitrary arrests. And I'll go into a bit more detail about that later on. Looking at cases, so one of the cases that saw a verdict happen in 2022 was the Paniai case, which was an incident in 2014, which saw the military open fire and kill protesters at a protest. The fact that no one was convicted, then the person who was on trial this year got free, shows the weaknesses of accountability on the government part of government actors such as the army or the police when violations to human rights take place. So we would like, so in terms of the judicial system, in terms of accountability for victims, it is very much lacking, as can be seen on that verdict. Finally, the passing away of Philip Karma under suspicious circumstances on the 1st of November, again, shows the sense of people behind free expression and free assembly are often being targeted possibly being targeted with threats, and also the outpouring of support and people's grief at the funeral shows the extent of feeling that these sort of actions can happen on the part of the people in West Papua. So some of the key takeaways that we found in our report are, well, basically that the situation has worsened in terms of the legal, in terms of arrest and harassment, despite the sweet words that the government or Jakarta would like to say on the international stage about the progress of development. So the continued heavy presence of the police in the report shows a continuing strategy of intolerance on the part of the security forces and the government on free expression in West Papua. And the impunity of which I sort of mentioned briefly in terms of when human rights violations occur shows that the justice system is not working to provide good justice for the victims of these human rights abuses. The increasing number of arrests have taken place across 2022 it's been a year-on-year increase in the last couple of years. And it has been a twin phenomenon, which I'll touch on a bit later on, of mass arrests at protests, but also targeted arrests of leadership figures in pro-independence organizations. And harassment and attacks on the HRDs and human rights defenders and the media have often been carried out, which have definitely created a climate of fear and insecurity among people who are trying to do their work and in trying to trying to protect the human rights of people who are trying to express their peaceful right to freedom of speech on certain issues. So the continuing criminalization of these groups and their harassment by non-state actors shows a continuing trend of impunity and a trend of these people are not being properly valued for the work they're doing on the part of the government. In terms of our recommendations, so things about judicial mechanisms, they need to be strengthened really to bring a sense of justice on the part of the victims, because currently, as we have seen in the Paniai case last year, and the verdict from that it is not working, and that victims are not receiving the sense of justice they have from these human rights abuses that are occurring to them. And this includes when people are trying to express, go out to protest. There shouldn't be a case where if their relatives have been killed during a protest, that they are not receiving the justice they deserve for that. In terms of HRDs and media, human rights defenders and media, I've talked a little bit about that in terms of legitimate actors, and that the government won't see certain people as legitimate, which is problematic. In terms of the trends against, especially the new criminal code and things like the treason articles still being in the criminal code, which criminalizes anything that's regarded as treasonous in the part of the Indonesian state, which often criminalizes self-determination activists in West Papua, do need to be dealt with and addressed, and would need to be reversed, we would say, to improve free expression. For the international community, we were looking at the UN High Commissioner, and there's been a continuous talk in the past few years of inviting the Human Rights Commissioner to visit West Papua, and we've continued to urge the international community, which have been very consistent on this point, to continue to push for that to happen. And that despite the Universal Periodic Review being this year, which put a lot of attention on the part of Indonesia, there needs to be continuous pressure throughout the course of the years, and not just focusing on when these big events come up. I will briefly go a little bit into the data. I'm aware of time a little bit. So we have a total of 106 incidents recorded over the course of 2022, over 6 different phenomena, as you can see there. What I would say is, from last year, we have a category on other FOA restrictions, which distinguishes the refusal to hold demonstrations and violence, which distinguishes that from arbitrary dispersals. But we see arbitrary arrests due to the number of incidences around dispersals, protests around special autonomy being committed. So we've seen a huge amount of, obviously, in terms of in Papua province, as the vast majority of events, but we've seen incidences relating to West Papua across 14 provinces across Indonesia, and 3/4 of all events occurring within the broader West Papua region, including Papua province and the other provinces that were there, as you can see from that data. Some of the big events that, of course, across the year, such as the West Papuan Declaration, the Declaration of Independence by the certain West Papua groups, which were commemorated in December. The handover of West Papua to Indonesia, which is commemorated in May. These are sort of mark out where the peaks of events are over the course of the year, and you see the number of incidences that occur relating to that. The police are involved in a huge majority of the incidences, but we see the sort of a high prevalence of unknown actors, and the police sometimes act in tandem with other actors as well. 80% of incidences involve the police in some way, whereas the unknown actors tend to act in tandem with and act against critics of government policy, on those fronts. And if we look at the breakdown based on groups that have been attacked and been targeted, we see that the West Papuan campaign groups are certainly the ones such as the People's Petition for Papua and the National Committee for West Papua are the ones who are getting the majority of attacks or most majority of the incidences they're facing. But we also see students make up a large proportion of incidents as well. If we're looking across some of the 4-year trends, we sort of see 2019 being a sort of unique year with the Papuan Uprising, which was a mass protest that occurred. But we generally see increase across from 2020, 2021, 2022. The harassment one on there is the decrease is mainly due to COVID but also to the fact that we've sort of divided up the incidences in a slightly different way. So that sort of decrease isn't as visible in the data we've seen as in the graph here, but generally the thing has been of rising number of incidents. And again, we're looking at mass arrests. We see an increase again, except for 2019, which has the Papuan Uprising. But since 2020, 2021, 2022, we have special autonomy coming into the fore, and we have COVID restrictions coming to the fore as well.
Yeah, sorry, would you mind to sum up a bit, because
I was just about to say so most of this you can find in the report yourself. So I go into more fine-grained data on all of these things. So you sort of see the arrests being tracked across the number of the year, including targeted arrests against leadership groups. And when it comes to free expression, we see a whole variety of incidents across in terms of intimidation and harassment. We've seen killings this year, which has been a cause of concern, and torture with people such as the flag raising of people who were flag raising in December 2021. Some of them were mistreated in prison, as well as Soda Hillapop, who died from medical ill treatments. And we also have seen issues targeting restrictions and attacks on human rights defenders and the media. And we've seen cases where these have been linked. So activists such as Haris Azhar and Fatia Maulidianti, who has been charged for defamation for their presentation against one of the ministers in government. They were charged under the Internet Information and Transactions Electronic Transactions Law, which has been a major source of chilling effect for activists who wish to use free expression online. So thank you very much for your attention. That's the QR code is for the report link, which will go into a lot more detail than I could cover here for the presentation. But yeah, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ian. The data speaks really a lot. And one interesting highlight that I can note so far, how accountability, especially from the state official, from the state apparatus, remains a big question. And that's very sad. Other things that I highlight from your presentation is about the trend of impunity. In your last few presentations, you mentioned about how repressions against human rights defenders. You mentioned also the case of Fatia and Haris is happening in not only in West Papua, but in Indonesia nationally. And this thing leads to one conclusion, I guess, from your data. I can draw that the police is the most frequent alleged perpetrator of all incidents. And I guess it's also linked with how accountability remains a big question. But we still have more time to discuss more from Ian's presentations. But before I invite next speaker, I would like to inform all participants that our sessions today mainly conducted in English. If you need interpretation, please go in the bottom part of your Zoom. There will be interpretation selection. Please choose English or Indonesia. And for all of you who watch via YouTube, and if you need interpretation, please join inside in the Zoom. And you can also raise questions via comments on YouTube or via Q&A in Zoom. All right, next speaker is Unggul Sagena from SafeNet. Unggul is an activist, policy analyst, and educator. His current role within Civil Society Network is leading the Internet Access Division of the Southeast Asia Freedom of Expression Network, or SafeNet. He is also an advisor to the Indonesian ICT Volunteers Organization, or RTIK. His expertise in digital governance, innovation technology, and policy analysis, and the intersection between technology and society. Unggul is also a member of Jakarta Legal Aid Community Paralegal, as well as researcher and lecturer on informatics and digital transformation, Vocational School, University of Indonesia. Mas Unggul, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Nurina, for the opportunity. I will briefly explain the findings so far from our research about the situation of fulfillment of the digital rights in West Papua. Can you see my slides? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The research was organized to complement and to deepen the digital rights situation report that yearly conducted by the SafeNet, like maybe, and there is a focus on Papua in the box of the annual or situational report. But this year we would like to make it more comprehensive, because we think that although this research will be part of the annual or digital situation report in Indonesia, but it is important to have a focus on this the West Papua region. We are also hope that this research will be like will inform more depth information from the Papua region. As we know, currently Papua also divided more in 6 provinces. So in this presentation, we will call it West Papua. Is the western part of the Papua Island, which is in Indonesian part. Now is 6 provinces, and usually we say it West Papua and Papua. So Papua province and West Papua province. So this is the key findings that we found so far, but we still currently analyzing it to make it more to make it the final report, and we are finding the theme of this the report. But first of all, I want to inform about the background that I already informed before, because it was done. I mean, the digital situation report like last year and every year we done it like remotely, but now we have more comprehensive research on Papua, on the West Papua. So this is the background that we feel that we have to conduct more comprehensive research on the digital rights in Papua, and also the case of internet.
So sorry,
Yes?
before you continue to your next slide, would you mind to like full screen your
Okay.
presentation? Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, how to make it full screen?
Maybe just click this button.
Play.
I think it's somewhere in the bottom.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So yeah, we done it in March and April, and now we are currently analyzing it and to make it final. So this is the general method that we use. We use we use qualitative research with the desk study and in-depth interview to 9 representatives of the communities, journalists, and activists. And also we develop our own independent digital security assessment. We call it Pakam Diri, to survey the awareness of the digital security of the CSOs in Papua. So there are 3 themes that we currently research about. It's about the internet rights access and the freedom of expression, and also the third one is the right to feel safe. So for the first rights, it's about the right to access the internet. This is the theme that we currently develop. Maybe we will change it later on, but right now this is the theme that we find. there is an ambivalence of connectivity and accessibility in internet rights in Papua. I will explain it later on the table. For the right to access, there is infrastructure development in the past 5 years. It's also very massively, but we can see that there is an ambivalence of the access of the people of the Papuan people to access the internet, even though the infrastructure, the government claimed that it is developed more massive, and also there is a digital transformation and so on. So we will discuss this later. And the access is still difficult for the Papuan. I will explain about the digital gap later on, about the mountainous areas versus the coastal areas and tourism sites versus the inland or inland surroundings of the Jayapura city and others. So you can see the presentation here, but I will explain later on the last slide on the table, right? And also there is also connectivity between the internet disruption to socio-political aspects in West Papua. And the second theme is the freedom of expression on the internet in Papua. We found that there's massive online repression, and there's also impact to the offline, like detention, like the arresting of activists and so on. I will explain later. This is one of the findings, that the key points that we took from the research. There's many things that happening there, including when there was a riots, there was several activists were arrested and provoking a crowd accused for a treason and so on. I will explain later. And also the online threats impact on activists. There's a chilling effects that the activists try to, some of them afraid, but some of them are trying to figure out a strategy to face the online threats. And the third one is the right to feel safe. There's a massive digital attacks, and there's also a minimal knowledge from the activist journalists and the communities. So the most occur digital attacks are doxing and also phishing, and there are some cases that are trying to take over the social media accounts, Facebook dominantly, and it's also targeted activists with essential or important social political positions. So there is a connection between these digital attacks to their activities. So, and also we try to conduct the digital security assessment to them, and then this is the result. It is moderately show that the communication is very vulnerable, but as we can see, it is slightly like in the moderate level, because of these activists, they have experienced some digital trainings, but not to their organization. Usually the individual versus organization is different, so they can manage to secure themselves, their account, but there is no a policy from the organization itself that they have to secure their, for example, their online identity for the organization, like that. So this is the table that we try to analyze. The first is part is the fulfillments. So there is like I explained before, is there is a for the right to access, and the first team, it is a palaparing project that now it's integration part. They say that it is finished from the government, but still there's an integration part, and the effect of this integration is the use of what they call it sea cable and fiber optic. Sometimes it's technical issues. Yeah, so the first part is the fulfillments, and the second part in the middle is the violations that we find, and then the right side is the trends or the pattern. So in the right to access, there's a fulfillment of this infrastructure development, and there are these violations. Like I said, there's a geographical gap, like in tourism areas in West Papua and Raja Ampat. They enjoy the stable connection, while the mountainous areas not stable. Right? And then also the trends or the patterns. What are the trends of these violations? So the first is the local internet shutdown or a disruption, and local telecommunication blackout. Sometimes they cannot even to call, and then also the Wi-Fi access only at a designated area. So when there's an event, they cannot like use their own internet connectivity on their mobile phone, but they have to connect to the Wi-Fi. So the Wi-Fi, they have to connect to the free Wi-Fi on the specific location, and we don't know who's behind it. Like so, and then also the stable connection to highly populated tourism areas, price discrimination solely on the business or market mechanism. So there's no incentive from the government, and then the right to online expression. So I think. The lesson learned from the 2019 case of internet shutdown, government more careful on using the ITE law, but in the reality, the violation still occurs when they are asking for a content takedown and also online intimidation, and most vulnerable platforms is Facebook. And then how this violation happens by arresting the activists and accuse them of provocation, and then interrogating them, and then asking to take down contents. And also they have the screenshots of the content sometimes to make it medium for exchange, that in the future you don't do this anymore because we have the screenshot, something like that. So this is a chilling effect for the activists and journalists. And lastly is the right to feel safe. The condition of fulfillment is there's a lack of government trust, but also the activists and journalists, they also hope that the private sector or the platforms also responsible, because of the platforms sometimes they feel that it is only not doing just doing their business like that. Some device or cell phones basic security trainings have been done, so that's why the pakam diri or the assessment is in the moderate level. So and digital attacks to activists and journalists, taking over accounts, doxing, phishing, and phishing, and also platform taking down contents without acceptable reason from account owners. Because some of the interviewees, they said that they don't really satisfied with the reason of the account takedown by the platform. And the trends or pattern is vulnerable digital security awareness, and most vulnerable on communication. So we have to like training more on the communication device and how to communicate through the internet, and a massive and structured movement to control the social media. And also they feel that there is a war or information going on in the social media. So, and also the individual security, like I said before, versus the managing the organizational, like in identity security is still like issues in the right to feel safe or the digital security. I think that's all of my presentation. We can move further for a discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mas Unggul. I noted several key findings that are really alarming us as human rights defenders, as an activist, as people who care for Papua, West Papua for sure. The first one is about the connectivity and accessibility, and it's connected to the right to access. I reckon that your findings, one of your findings is really interesting, how internet connections are relatively faster in highly populated tourism area. You mentioned one of the spot is Raja Ampat, and it's very popular. And compared to big cities like Jayapura, even in the south, is relatively slower than in the touristic area. Second findings that I noted so far is about the online repression that brings offline impact. The last slide that you showed, uh, you know, um, show to us that how the rights to online expression is violated. And some of the examples from this violation is doxing and also social media account takeover. Especially this is happened to activists who are, vocal in their posts. The third takeaways or key findings that I noted so far from your presentation, Masungul, is about the lack of trust in government platform, and it relates to right to feel safe. Um, but however, from your presentation and also from Ian's presentations, I happen to highlight like two key words that we've been discussing so far. It's chilling effect. So I don't know whether both of you have coordinated so far before this event, but I noted that you talk about how chilling effect uh, it's really real in West Papua, and previously Ian also mentioned about chilling effect regarding repression against human rights defenders. So that's the two speakers who share the report. Before we invite the next speaker, I would like to friendly remind all the participants to raise questions via Q&A box in Zoom or via comment feature in the YouTube. Now I'd like to invite or call the host to prepare, because we're going to have um, brief launch of the report, and this is the QR code provided by SafeNet and also Tapol UK. So participants, today SafeNet and also Tapol UK are officially launching their reports. Both of the reports you can find online via QR code that's now been, showed on your screen. You can also find the QR as well, not the QR, but the links to the reports in the chat box, also in YouTube's comments. I would like to congratulate SafeNet and also Tapol UK for the report. These are impressive reports. So many great findings that actually we need to really concern on. We will discuss further on the findings, but now I'd like to invite our next speaker. She is Esther Haluk, a feminist, pro-democracy activist and human rights defender, academic and church worker. Kak Esther is teaching at Theological College Walter Post in Jayapura, Papua, and besides her activism, she is the secretary of Women Department at Kingmi Church in Tanah Papua. Kak Esther, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
So the floor is yours. We've been talking about the recent trend, the situation in Papua regarding freedom of expression, regarding internet access, regarding freedom of assembly, regarding digital rights. And the two previous speakers actually have shown interesting data on how the police has been, the most frequent alleged perpetrators, how human rights defenders in West Papua, how freedom of expression has been restricted so far. And um, like I said earlier, there are keywords that's been, showcasing by the two speakers, chilling effect. And I would like to know your opinion on that. And how has the situation on freedom of expression and also assembly so far, because you live there, you've been part of the movement since 2019 to 2022. How has it been so far?
Okay. Thank you for the chance and also the platform to share what is happening in West Papua related to the freedom of expression, assembly, and digital rights. I don't know, I can't. Okay. To start with, as mentioned and explained by the previous two speakers, as a West Papuan, I just want to share my personal experience living in West Papua with this kind of situation. I was in 1997, I went to Java and to study there. And I experienced a different situation because when I was studying in Java, I have this freedom of expression. I can express, I can gather with my friends, we can talk, and also we can, whenever something happened in West Papua, we can do protest, peaceful protest. And they have police just guard us. And then when we done with the demonstration, and then we will just go back to the campus, and it stopped just like that. And I think I still remember also marching on the streets to when Suharto was still on the reign in totalitarian rules. I still remember marching with other students on the street to take him down. And we have this freedom of expression. I never felt stressful like what I feel now in West Papua. And to start and explaining this, nowadays it started after I came back here in 2000. Above, it's the freedom of expression is starting to decrease, but it's getting worse in 2019 when we have this uprising related to the that happened in 2019 related to racism. So there's a phobia, I think, for the state. For us to express our opinion. Now that what I feel as a West Papuan is there are so many state policy that implemented in West Papua that even me as an educated people, we cannot accept that because it's related to our life. It's a matter of, we have ecological destruction, we have new provinces created by Jakarta that will endanger our life, deforestation, we have a land grabbing issue, we have so many things. And we have our own rights to express that we protest, we do protest. I think as a democratic nation, that's what it said in Indonesian. Everywhere they go, they said we are a democratic country. So I thought living in a democratic nation like that, I can express my opinion freely. But as far as like my personal experience, I think these rights, as a West Papuan, we don't have these rights. Inside Indonesia, other Indonesia can have that. That's right. They can express their feelings freely. But for us in West Papua, I start recognizing it. Not only me, but all generation. Our young generation in West Papua start feeling that, and they start to stand up to protest, because when we are being killed, we cannot protest. Being mutilated, must keep silent. any state policy not benefit us. We must just bow down and accept it. Protesting will be forcibly dispersed, using excessive military police to stop our peaceful rally. And I have an experience in last year, in May 10th, I was doing with my friends peaceful demonstration, and I was arrested because of that. And when one of the police officer, when he arrested me, he said, "Oh, I know you. I know you from your post, your social media post." That's what this police officer said to me when he arrested me. So from that moment, we were taken to the police station, and we were charged because of it's not because of the peaceful demonstration that we did or we organized, but it's because of our social media post. So we have this massive internet operation that is happening. And I also have my personal experience, my Facebook account being hacked. It's already 3 times. So the latest one that I use is the 3rd Facebook account because of my post. I seldom post anything. It's just like, it's just commenting on the news, and it's considered to be focal. And whenever we do the protest, the peaceful protest, we are accused of treason. That is what is happening right now with my friends, Victor Yemo, being arrested because of involving in the peaceful protest that happened in 2019. We were, it was a racism, this Indonesian saying us or call us monkey, and we do the protest, but then we are arrested. Why the state did not arrest those who start calling us monkey? Why we are the victims? Why we are arrested? It's something that I cannot understand in my and here in West Papua, speaking about truth as a fact, it will be saying that we are spreading hoaxes. I remember I have several Facebook posts, and when I put someone's commenting on my Facebook post that I am spreading hoaxes, I'm talking about the truth. I'm talking about the things that is happening. I'm talking about military operation that affecting my life, my people's life. And I'm called that I'm spreading hoaxes. That's another thing. Next, we also have, there's no freedom of expression in the campus, because campus signed MOU with military. So every time the students have or wants to do demonstration, peaceful demonstration inside the campus, it is police and military officer will come, enter campus to disperse students' protest. So this is the real situation happening. This is a peaceful demonstration. We are expressing, we are using our rights to express our opinion. But why using a military officer? Why? Why don't we just use police? From what I have learned, that military officers are used only when defending countries, but that's not the fact here. That is happening right now in West Papua. So every time we plan to, it's actually according to the law, we just tell these like we go to, we bring letters and then let them know that we are going to have a peaceful demonstration. But then that's not the case that's happening here in West Papua. Every time we bring the letter asking for permits to have this gathering or peaceful demonstration, we will be asked so many questions. And not only that, in the morning, at 6 o'clock, sometimes these military vehicles and military, not only military, but also police vehicles are on the street in every alley to stop us to go to the main roads to join the peaceful demonstration. That is the real situation that is happening right now. And also what we are having now is creating horizontal conflict between the Indonesian citizen and also West Papuan students. So every time we have a peaceful demonstration, everywhere, our students, our West Papuan students, the place they study, when we have an issue that we want to protest, and these people, common people, will be taken by or organized or mobilized by, I do not know who are mobilizing them to stop, to have conflict with our students, West Papuan students. So these are the situation that I thought, because I'm from the generation that I still, when Suharto regimes, I'm still from that generation. So I understand about the freedom of expression and the difference that I used to experience when I was in Java and what I'm experiencing right now in West Papua. So as I said before, we are doing protesting because we want to save our life. There are so many things that going on right now. We have internally displaced person that almost reached 69,000 that the state, the Indonesian government do not do anything without for the IDP. So where should we go to ask for help? This internally displaced person is not internal affairs. This is humanitarian crisis. So those are the things that we experience related to this issue of the freedom of expression. It's slowly decreasing right now. So those are the fact that we are facing right now in West Papua. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kak Esther, for sharing with us. I mentioned several important points from you, especially if we try to put 20 together, try to connect the dot between the previous speakers. Like you said, recently people stand up and they protest against what's really happening so far. And you also said that the situation is worsening since 2019. I think it's since the anti-racial protests happened in Surabaya, and it's also happening in several cities as well. One interesting takeaway that I can mention here is that when you say about how younger generation, they're more aware now of the situation in West Papua. And if you look at TAPO's data, especially the number of incidents regarding a group, it shows that students are the most frequent group that are affected by the situation. So I guess this is alarming information for us, and I think there must be a follow-up from this. This is not just about data. This is not about number, but it shows a very strong data that need to be followed up. Okay, I will start from there, and I would like to invite our last speaker, Pak Made Supriyatma. Pak Made is a visiting research fellow at ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute, Singapore. He joined the Indonesia study program and conducted research on election, decentralization, West Papua, and military politics. He is also an early warning fellow with the Simon Scott Center for the Prevention of Genocide, an institution under the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, Washington, D.C. He is currently the lead author of the Simon Scott Center report on risk of mass atrocities in West Papua. Pak Made, how do you tell the trend in the region or in the global scale? Is it what happened in Papua really speaks the regional trend or the global trend? The floor is yours. We cannot hear your voice. Would you mind to unmute?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much, Lorena. Good morning to friends in Europe, and good afternoon, friends in Indonesia. I read these two reports very carefully, even though SafeNet's report is still in the form of draft when I receive it. But from the presentation of Mas Unggul, that's really amazing. I think it's a really amazing is going on in there and enrich me in my interpretation. And in a global scale, I think, let me start with this. Nobody really care about Papua. And Papua is a nation that nobody asks about what they want for their life. This is an abandoned nation. And I think that's the perception of in Indonesia and the perceptions in the international community. It's a kind of the 21st century racism, so that I can say, because we tend to think that Papua is like a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Philip Karma, always said that we are a half human. We are only half human. So nobody asks about what Papua want to do for their lives. In 1962, the agreement was between Indonesia and the Netherlands, facilitated by the United States and the United Nations. In 1969, Indonesia claims, or in the international community claims that there was the act of free choice, but for Papua, that was the act of no choice. Only 1,025 people were deliberating under the Musyawarah and Mufakat. That's what Indonesia forced to have under a lot of intimidations and repression. And they are all, these 1,025 people agreed to join Indonesia, even though 3 years after that, rebellion erupted everywhere. And then you have special autonomy, which was crafted mostly in Jakarta without any consultation with the Papuan people. And you divide them into how many provinces that you want, but there's without also any consultation with Papua. So the problem is really, really deep. So, and I think from the report, I'm glad that Ian mentioned it very forcefully, using the term Papuan Uprising in 2019. I think this is the first time the Papuan people staged a demonstration, a huge demonstration in almost all major cities in Papua, to protesting about racism, the very thing that we Indonesian or we the international community never acknowledge that we did it to the Papuan people. And the result of that, I think, is I can see very clear because I'm studying nationalism is very, well, intensively under Ben Anderson. I can see that West Papuan nationalism is on the rise. Every younger generation that I talk with, they acknowledge there's an identity as a West Papuan, which is very distinct from Indonesia. Well, they are talking the Malay dialect of West Papuan, and I think they are very proud of that right now. But not only that, but they as Esther just said, there is a consciousness that we are different, we are suffering, and if we don't act, if we don't do something, that we will perish. That I think is very strong in West Papuan community right now. And I think if you see that all indicators that become the sign of nationalism is on the rise. Young people is more involved. And if the data from TAPOL say that more young people were involved in the protest and the demonstration, that West Papuans right now have a very vibrant student movement, which is not under the radar of Indonesian activists actually. In Indonesian region, students who studied outside Papua, they have an AMP, Alliance of Papuan Students, and inside Papua you have a KNPB, Comité Nasional for West Papua, or National Committee for West Papua. And lately, after the revision of special autonomy law, you have PRP. Papuan People Petition, which organized protests everywhere. And well, of course, the response from Indonesian security forces is also very harsh. Almost all of the KNPB leaders, their leaderships, are in jail right now. And PRP, well, these have some freedom, sort of, because they are still small. And AMP, it's just 2 weeks ago, they held a demonstration in Bali. And then the security forces, the militia confronted the, AMP, demonstrators, and there were clash between Patriot Garuda Nusantara, that's the militia. I think it was created by the commander of the military in Bali. It's a very strong link with the elite in Jakarta. His father-in-law is a very important person in Jokowi's administration. So you see everywhere, even in Yogyakarta, the place that I live, there's a very strong AMP's organization here, and also the very strong militia organized with the link of the military and the police to confront this Papuan student movement. But it's under this kind of repression, they're still able to do something. They're still able to voice their dissent to Indonesia, and then still making noise despite this very unpopular in the front of the locals, in the eyes of the locals. And Papua is not in the mind of Indonesians because of nationalism. A lot of activists that I talk with, they really don't care. They don't want to put Papua in their agenda, because it's probably one is too risky. And the second is, Indonesian nationalism is very strong. He's always thinking that Papua is part of Indonesia, and they don't understand the history of this region. And the only thing that Indonesia always hold dear until now, that we are in the Sabang, our region is from Sabang to Merauke, which is in Papua. But the Indonesians, especially the younger generation, never read, I think, very seldom read the debate when this republic was established, when Muhammad Hatta said that, for Papuan, let's wait and ask them whether they want to join us or not, because we are different. And then I think, what else? In response to the SafeNet, to the gap between the mountainous region and also and the tourist region, I think the gap, I think it's a similar, findings that I found when I wrote a report for the Simon Scott, was that the demographics gap, the coastal region and the highland region, there's a gap in everything. You see this now it's in the internet or digital access, but there's also a more deep gap in that between these two regions. One is the regions full of migrants or pendatang, and the second is Human Development Index and everything. That if you compare a statistic, there's a gap between these regions, I think. And also, if you look deeper at the gap, you will see that the gap actually between indigenous Papuans and the migrants. So I think the main thing that I want to emphasize right now is that there's a huge sociological time bomb in West Papua right now, which is demographic time bomb, where in the coastal regions, there's the Papua, the migrant region, and then the highland region is a Papuan, indigenous Papuan region. And whether they will be, translated into a huge conflict, we don't know yet. But the gap is getting wider and deeper each and every day. And also what is missing from our conversation right now is that the classic problem of the Papuan, like there's no access for foreign journalists, for researchers, let alone human rights defenders to go into Papuan region. Yeah, that's also the huge problem, but we don't think we can change that in the near future. And also, in addition to SafeNet, I think we need to do a research on the digital media or the media in West Papua, because in my experience, once I had a collaboration with Tirto.id 3 years ago about the media, digital media in West Papua, which was, I think, from what we found is, I forgot the number, but the hundreds of media in West Papua was controlled by Indonesia, so Indonesian government. So the government tried to create a narrative about West Papua for who? For Indonesian, not for the West Papua. So the target, the main target of Indonesian government or Indonesian campaign, Indonesian propaganda in West Papua is not against the indigenous West Papuans, but to convince Indonesian how good we are doing in West Papua, how benevolent we are, and how generous we are to the West Papua. That's, I think, the one that we really need to uncover in the near future. Thank you, Mbak Nurina. I think I exceed the time a little bit.
No worries at all, Pak Mahdi. Okay, so I highlighted several important points from your presentation. It's about the 24th century racism happening in West Papua right now. It's not a new thing, but sadly, it's still happening until today. And if we talk about the historical perspective as well, it's interesting how Indonesians tend to forget the historical perspective on both sides, Papua side and also in Indonesian side. You mentioned about how the 1962 agreement it's actually abandoned the West Papuans, and you also mentioned previously how is Papua perceived as an abandoned nation? No countries actually really look at the conflict meaningfully. And the root cause for it is that there had been no proper or meaningful participation so far since the beginning, since 1962 up to now. You talk about the creation of new provinces and talk about the revision of spatial autonomy law, for example, and other things about West Papua, the current issues is about also the classic problem, no access so far, no access for international journalists, no access for international activists, let alone the human rights defenders. So access also the contributing factors why we don't have adequate information about and what's really happening. So far, what we get from the ground is coming from the West Papuan themselves. But I don't know if it's safe to say for you, Pak Mahdi, there's no international perspective concluding about the situation in West Papua so far before we jump in the Q&A session officially. So you've been talking about the recent situations in West Papua, but I ask you, currently what we've been lacking so far is the response or the reaction from the international community, because what we've been getting so far is coming from the indigenous West Papuans, also organizations who work advocating for West Papuans. How do you think about that, Pak Mahdi? Would you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I think in terms of international politics, well, there was a short period of time when ULMWP, United Liberation Movement for West Papua, started to do a diplomacy start from the Pacific countries. They create a little noise in the United Nations and also in the MSG, what is that, Melanesian Spearhead Groups. I think, but I think then, yeah, sadly, everybody knows in West Papua that these organizations and then becomes what is that?
Are you
they have an infighting inside the organization. So let's say about that. There's certain factions try to get more influence. But now I think they try to work out on that difference. And it's become a thorny issues for West Papua. But at the same time, I think uh, what is that? Indonesia, I think, gaining more ground in the Pacific regions by I don't know, a kind of diplomacy. I think a harsh diplomacy. Like if you can't convince people, this is a classic American. If you can't convince people, why don't you give them material benefits, for example, something like that. So, but the thing is that in the international arena, there are some setbacks for West Papuans compared to before 2019. But in domestic front, I think as the report, all the report has said, there's something big going on. I think the younger generation, not only for the protesters, for the demonstrators, but also look at the TPN, OPM, for example, the National Liberation Army of West Papua. I think I know very well. These are teenagers, very young people. And can you imagine that about a month ago, they attacked two Indonesian military posts. I think 21 soldiers are still missing right now, and they are from Kopassus, for God's sakes. We don't talk about that in Indonesia. We don't talk about that. We try to hide that. But the fact that our best military attack by the teenager who are, I think, Egianus Kogoya, just graduated from SNP, middle school. It's amazing. I think, I don't know, something is very wrong in the Indonesian side. And also something is going, I don't know what to say, but they have the skill to do that kind of attack. And I think I read the comment from so many Indonesian analysts said that's impossible to happen. It must be, they must get the, assistance from foreign forces. No, not at all. I have sources among journalists, reporters, and say that no, there's no. How can foreigners come to West Papua, because it's just every centimeters of the borders were plugged in by Indonesian forces. It's impossible. So. Yeah, that kind of thing. Something is going on, and I think we will see a lot more of them in the future.
Thank you, Pak Made. I need to limit ourselves here because apparently there have been several questions in the Q&A box. I see one of the question has been answered by Esther, but would you mind to restate that in the video, Kak Esther, from Nick Chesterfield? The key step you wish for the international community to take. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, can you read the questions, please?
Of course. Yeah. It's in the chat box as well in the Q&A box. It's about your wish for the international community to guarantee to save of your rights. It's regarding the freedom of expression, and what specific steps do you want international journalists to take support for your struggle?
Well, we want international community solidarity towards our case related to this freedom of expression that is decreasing in West Papua, and related, and also for keeping the Indonesian government accountable to for this issue, and also for the questions related to what need to be done for the international related to international journalists, because now what we are experiencing in West Papua, international journalists are banned to enter West Papua. So we want international community to put pressure on the Indonesian government to open access to the international findings journalists and also journalists to enter West Papua. And next is to ask the Indonesian government, because our main problem that is happening right now is because of the high presence of the military. And because West Papua is the most militarized region in Indonesia, so withdrawing these military officials, organic and non-organic, is really important from West Papua. And the last one, still related to the humanitarian crisis that is happening now here in West Papua, we want to tell, and also in this forum, that humanitarian crisis is not internal affairs. It must be solved. It needs to be handled by the state. I think that's the main, some of the key point that I want to stress. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ka Esther, and I hope Nick, is that answering your question? I hope it was. And we have next question from Arul Prakash. How in reality we can support victims of arbitrary arrest and torture? I realize some of the lawyers are struggling to support them due to lack of resources and cases happening in other regions in Indonesia, to make process of justice and accountability more difficult. I would like to send this question to maybe either Mas Unggul or Ian, and maybe Ka Esther, you can add on.
I might be able to answer a little bit on the first part of the on the first part of the question, actually, because yeah, certainly it is important as Kak Esther and Made have sort of mentioned in terms of the international awareness of what's going on in West Papua is fairly low, given the lack of access by international media into the region, and so quite a lot of the work of what that Tapol does, but also other organizations, such as we're part of a coalition, which is called Papuans Behind Bars, which looks and keeps up to date information on the situation of different political prisoners that have been arrested for free expression and that have faced torture and arbitrary arrests and things like that. So, and there are other organizations as well, such as I know about Lawyers for Lawyers in the West, and also Frontline Defenders, who have also been good on on those sort of defenders that have been subject to arrests and things like that. So the work, so that's mainly trying to, as I say, increase the awareness, increase people's ability to connect with the people, because sometimes organizations like so that the coalition such as Papuans Behind Bars might do letter writing campaigns for people, supporting people who are in prison, or the families of those who are outside of prison, and showing that international solidarity does exist. And it is powerful in terms of getting the world to take notice of things like the Fatian Harris case has got attention. It's in Indonesia, hopefully more so slowly coming outside of Indonesia, and that's raising the awareness of what's going on in the trials and what's going on the proceedings of the criminal courts. So that would be, I'd suggest the important actions, and lawyers, in terms of lawyers on the ground. There are associations on the ground, like the local aid organizations that do so much work on the ground, and they themselves are sometimes subject to harassment and intimidation as well. So that's a phenomenon that occurs in addition to the work, the caseload that you mentioned. That's sort of more of the work that we are trying to raise more awareness on, in terms of in trying to put pressure on the Indonesian government in that regard. I think Kak Esther or Mas Unggul can add a little bit more on to that as well.
Yeah, Kak Esther, would you add a bit, or maybe followed by Mas Unggul, please? Please unmute yourself.
I have problem with sound here. So can you put it in like this question, simple, that I can I can get the point.
It's similar actually with the previous questions, but
There's a connection that I face here.
Can you hear me now? Okay, I think Kaiser is having. Yes, can you hear me now? Yeah, can you hear me clearly? Yes. Okay, so you want me to repeat the question, right, Kaiser?
Yes.
So it's a question from Arul. He's asking like how in reality we can support the victim of arbitrary arrest and torture, and he's also talking about a problem faced by lawyers and how the community can support the families of those who are arrested. Basically, similar to with the previous questions, but this time in how in reality those efforts are possible to be done.
Yeah, well, I think when we talk about how to, we really need freedom of expression. That's the basic rights. That's our basic rights. It's about our existence as a people, as a human being. And I think for how to take this Indonesian government to be accountable related to the implementation of the freedom of expression in West Papua. Besides, as I mentioned before, besides international community solidarity, we also want in every, we have media. Media is very important in creating opinion related to the situation. And also a pressure, international community pressure, not only to the Indonesian government, but also to the UN related to our rights that is suppressed right now in West Papua. So how you can help us with this situation, because there's no access for outsiders. Even the national journalists or Indonesian journalists are also sometimes being watched when covering stories, covering news in West Papua. So we need to ask this government, the Indonesian government, to not differentiating us, West Papua, if they still think, if they consider us as a part of the Indonesia, then we need, they have to implement the same policy toward us, not differentiating us from the rest of Indonesia. I think, can it answer your questions?
Yeah, I think we all can agree that, yeah, access is a big problem, really, in West Papua right now. We're running out of time, speakers and participants. Now I would like to invite respective speaker to have its closing statement, starting from Ian or Mas Unggul. Which one? Mas Unggul first or Ian first for closing statement?
Silakan, Mas.
Mas Unggul?
Mas Unggul belum cerita dari tadi.
Yeah, okay. My closing statements maybe our research is new for SafeNet actually, because usually we are monitoring and advocating like from distance, and this year we want to focus more on the West Papua digital rights developments, because I think this is the time that we have to focus on this region, because in the past years we provide reports for the government also to read, and also in the past years there's no significant improvement on this kind of issues. And also every year there is not only every year, every month there is a violation of digital rights in West Papua. So I think we hope that this kind of research and a report that we try to make it like not only once but also like regularly, and it will become one of the resources that we hope that not only us, like as a civil society, but also the private sectors and public sectors that can have more perspectives and more focus on the development of digital rights in West Papua. Because these years, I mean, like in the five years, even after the case of 2019, we can see that there is no like significant improvement, and then the government doesn't learn much from their policies at the time until now. So we hope that this is the era that they can open their mind, and then they consider this research, because usually maybe if we say about this is I mean the experience of activists or journalists, or they say that this is this is from CSOs, that they are like always not in line with our policies like that. But we hope that in terms of this research, because research is academically trusted, so if they still ignore what we have done until today, and then we feel sorry for this the Indonesia, that like Esther said, that this is a democracy country. The how can they close their eyes about the situation that's still happening, the military, and then the socio-political aspects that always involved in the violation of the digital rights, and it is proven by the research that we conducted. So I think my closing statement is like this: we have to open our mind to have to see that the West Papua is not only the eastern region of Indonesia, but they have many things that the government also have to to see, because like I said that they don't see anything until now, that we have to open their eyes like that.
As you said earlier,
Yeah.
no significant improvement, therefore we need to open our
Yes.
mind. Thank you, Mas Unggul. I move to Ian. Can you make it short, Ian?
I'll try. Actually, just drawing on what Pat Made said earlier, in terms of, it seems that the uprising in 2019 was a game changer in terms of the amount of demonstrations and the amount of, therefore, the amount and the consciousness, the amount of demonstrations and consciousness that have been raised among the new generation of Papuans. And therefore, the Indonesian government has therefore gotten a bit scared and is trying to crack down on this new consciousness and this new spirit of demonstration. And that event was the first, that event that made us launch our series on reports on freedom of expression and assembly in West Papua. And so in terms of the degrading situation we have seen, certainly across a whole number of different categories, the police and the actors that have been operating, such as they've worked alongside, such as militia groups, or even the atmosphere that it has created, has led to certainly a chilling, as I've used the word I've used before, to chilling effect on the civil society and the feeling of being able to freely express opinions and to be able to demonstrate in West Papua. So I just want to, just highlight that. It happens in the coming years. Now that the special autonomy has passed, and now that the provinces have been divided up, whether we'll see more military involvement in the different regions to act against certain protests that occur, or whether we will continue to have that same level of consciousness among the people of West Papua to fight for their rights, and they are continuously being attacked and continuously being harassed to stop talking on these issues. That's what I would want to see in the future, because the Indonesian government keeps using in the UPR, they were using language about, it's about development of the region, economic development of the region, and they don't take rights to account. So getting that more awareness on that front, and for the government and for the international community, I think is what is very important.
Yeah, agree. If we look at the UPR responses, that Indonesian government tend to use the developmentalism perspective. It's about how well they develop Papua, how well they try to use the term of economic development. But anyway, thank you so much, Ian. I'd like to move to Pak Made. Which might be
Thank you. Let me say from very personal perspective. I've been involving with Papua, I think, more than 20 years. What I conclude, I make friends with a lot of young people, and what I can conclude after 20 years is that life is short in Papua, but sufferings were very, very long. So I always say to my Papuan friends, take care of yourself and be safe, because a lot of friends are just disappear, died because of sickness, because of accidents. Some are really just blatantly killed by the security forces, and I think I'm really concerned about it. I never seen that level of sufferings happen to a nation, to a bangsa, and nobody cares about that. The international communities doesn't care about that. Look at the refugee crisis right now. I think Esther knows very well. I think there are probably around 60,000 people become refugees in their own country. And where is the international organization for refugees? They are nowhere to be found. Part of it because Indonesia doesn't want to internationalize this problem, and Indonesian government doesn't want people outside Papua knows about this. And this is a real refugees. In Maybrat, in Duga, it's still not solved, even though how many years have been going on since 2018 in Duga. Yeah, that kind of suffering is very, very long. And the life of the people, very, very short. So I think, if I may, I just want to appeal, do whatever you can to build a solidarity for these abandoned people. Thank you.
What a thoughtful message, Pak Made. Thank you so much. And I hope the Indonesians as well, the Indonesian government, will be as thoughtful as you are today.
Indonesian people especially. I don't really have a hope in Indonesian government, but Indonesian people, we as Indonesian, we can be a better Indonesian if we help these people, the Papuan people. Yes.
Thank you, Pak Made. Last but not least, Kak Esther Haluk, would you mind to share your closing statement? Please unmute yourself, Kak Esther. Yes.
That's a strong message from Pak Made. Thank you. From me, I would like to say that critical situation need fast response. And by saying that, because the critical situation that we face right now, even though the Indonesian government always talk about developmentalism, but development also marginalize us, also colonize us, because the government only focus on the infrastructure to develop the infrastructure, but leaving people, leaving human. We have problems with health. We have health problems. We have educational problem for our young generation that cannot continue their study because of the military operation that is happening right now. And also, as Made said and mentioned about the internally displaced person, I mentioned earlier that humanitarian crisis is not internal affairs. This is a humanitarian crisis. And this situation needs, we as a West Papuan, we need UN intervention for our humanitarian crisis that is happening in all over, across West Papua right now, in every aspect of life. This is about our life. This is about our identity. This is about a matter of life and death for us. So by saying that, as I mentioned before, international community solidarity, we need that to pressure the Indonesian government. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kak Esther, and thank you for all participants for staying with us for the past 90 minutes plus 15 minutes late from our initial schedule. Thank you so much for listening to us. And please do not only listen, please gain international solidarity. Please show your support, because that's all we need. If we move together, if we move stronger, perhaps lots of life can be saved. Thank you so much for attending our discussion today, for attending the reports launch today. My name is Narina Safitri. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining.